Hello, welcome back to another video. This is day 12 of 30 days JavaScript challenge on LeetCode, and let's go. So, by the way, I have been enjoying this entire series just because it might look like it is not, the questions are easy, but they are focusing on questions which focuses on how the functionalities of JavaScript has been created. Okay, so I think it's a really important series. Let's go with promises and time. Okay, I think now it will become a bit difficult for a lot of people. Let's see. Given two promises, promise one and promise two, return a new promise. Okay, promise one and promise two will both resolve with a number. The returned promise should resolve with the number with the sum of the two numbers. Okay, so we have two promises, promise one and promise two. By the way, for this, I think now this and next four, five, or whatever questions we have, you should know promise. So promise on the surface level, you can think of it as a async program which accepts a resolve and a reject function. What it means is that based on some certain conditions, either it will resolve or give successful result, or it will give a failure result. Okay, it is the most common implementation of this is in API calls and all those things. Let me show you one thing. Promise in JavaScript. I'll quickly explain it to you before we go in depth. Let's see this example. Yeah, let's see this example. So this is how we create a promise, like new promise, then we pass to this promise accepts a function, okay, callback function. So in that function, we pass two things. One is the resolve function and second is the reject function, okay? So think it like this, a promise in that we pass a function. In that we pass two separate functions. One is the resolve, one is the reject. Resolve means successful, reject means failure. Okay. So they have written a logic. This logic is not important. The point is that on some conditions, either it will pass the success or it will pass the failure. Okay. So this is how a promise is created. Now, how do we execute it? So we execute it using dot then, and as soon as we execute it, we can get the success or the failure value. Okay, it's similar. So now because we are using then you can compare it with fetch method also. Okay, so now let's try and see what is this. Given two promises, promise one and promise two. This is promise one and promise two. Return a new promise. Okay, return a new promise. Promise one and promise two will both resolve with a number. Okay, they both will resolve. So they have automatically mentioned that it will resolve. Resolve means successful. It won't reject. It won't be a failure. Okay, the returned promise should resolve. Okay, the return promise should resolve with the sum of two numbers. Okay, so await promise one. Okay, let me try to explain like this. Uh, let resolve one equals to await promise one. Await means that the code will stop executing here and it will wait for that particular promise to finish. Okay. Similarly for this also, this will finish. And once both of these are finished, that at that point we'll get the sum value one, value two, and we have to return the sum, right? So we'll return resolve one plus resolve two. Let's see. Okay, I've written it incorrectly. Let me run this again. And it worked. Okay. So now let's have a look at the statement again. Just I'm explaining you this considering the thought process that you might be new to it. Okay. So promise is something which waits and at the end it gives successful, which we term as resolve, or failure, which we term as reject. Okay. Waits meaning it works in a asynchronous code and returns something at the end. Okay. Now given two promises, promise one, promise two, return a new promise. Now that means we have returned a new promise. But how is this a new promise? I will explain you later. Okay. Promise one and promise two will both resolve. Okay. Resolve means they both will be successful. So whenever we get the response from the promise one, now we don't need to check whether it was a successful or failure thing. Okay. We know that it will be a successful thing only. So we are just using await because promise one will take some time to finish. Okay. And if it is taking some time to finish, we will have to wait for that result. So await means that this code will wait for this particular thing to finish. Once this finishes, the result will be stored in result one. Similarly, promise two will again wait using await and save it to result two. Now, because both of these things are waiting, this will also wait. Okay, and in the end, this entire thing gets converted as a promise. Okay, so let's run this and we'll see some solutions also. Okay, it did got accepted. Let's see the best solution. Okay, so they actually created the new promise. I should have done that. No, I don't think I should have done that. Let's see other. Promise all is also fine. Yes, this should work. Why? How was this different? Let's search actually. Let's try to understand this. How are these two functions different? And what was our solution? This was our solution. Both functions achieve the same result, adding the values resolved by two promises, but differ slightly in how they handle the final result. Okay, the first result, add two promises, this. Okay, here await waits for the promise one and promise two to resolve. The resolved values num1 and num2 are added. The new promise is created and resolved. Yes, they are creating the new promise and resolve, which technically in the question statement they mentioned it like this only. So we could have done that, but I think the other one also is the correct one. The addition this is returned as the function result without wrapping it into a new promise. Yes, redundant promise creation. The first function unnecessarily wraps the return in a new promise. Yes. So technically, I think our solution is a bit better actually. The second one is simpler, avoids the extra overhead of creating an additional promise and makes it more efficient. Yeah, great. So I don't know how they are timing it and everything, but um, our solution was good enough. Refresh, and it got submitted. That's it. Thank you, and bye bye.